Holding angles in Siege might be some of the most complicated subjects you could talk about in the game. This is literally what goes on in my head when I try to explain about angles in Siege. There's just too much, but this is what makes Siege such a complex and good FPS that keeps players coming back. In games like Valorant, Call of Duty, maybe even Overwatch, yeah, you do have some weird player movements, but do they manipulate the map? Absolutely not. When you're able to craft the map exactly how you want, anytime in the round, this creates literally an infinite amount of possibilities that you can use. So let's break down how to hold and use angles without just camping and throwing your life away. So we'll start with the basics. Obviously, holding an angle means you are just kind of holding onto, like, you're hiding behind cover, looking at a certain angle. Does tightness matter? Are we talking about our angles, or are we talking about our... Now, as a Siege player, you're probably cringing because you do realize that half my body is exposed right now. This is what it looks like on the other side. About half of my body is exposed, and if this character was leaning, even more would be exposed. So how do we fix that? You would hide more of yourself behind cover until you can barely see outside of the door. Now, holding angles, you can either be standing or crouching. If you're wondering what the correct answer is, if you should crouch or stand, they're both right. It really depends on the situation. Most of the time, you do want to be standing to force them to aim head level, but if you guys exchange some bullets, you should change your head level to crouch. So just make sure you're always aiming down sights, aim head level, and just be patient sometimes. Now let's talk about close versus far angles. Closer angles give you faster reaction time, but less time to react. It's a high risk, high reward. Now farther angles give you more distance and time, but pixel game becomes a game of milliseconds. You should mix both far and close depending on your enemy's position and your recoil. If I have high recoil, it's probably not smart to hold an angle when a gun goes like this. But if I'm close, I can get away with that. Same exact thing with fire rate as well. Now, a good question is, how long should you be holding an angle? If you're holding an angle like this and no one peeks you for at least like 10 to 15 seconds, it's better just to get off the angle and go do something else. This way, the enemy doesn't get information on you, and you also have a lower risk of dying to your environment. But Siege is dynamic. Angles are tools, not hiding spots. Now, next, let's explain tight versus wide angles. Let's say I'm a defender and an attacker walks in the last like 15 seconds of the round. A tight angle would obviously be to minimize my exposure. If this is the enemy, I would, maybe let's say he's walking through the rotate. I would hold an angle like this, right? So that way I'm still in cover, but I can still get enough to get my bullets reached. But a wider angle will require me to move and swing him. Like, for example, let's say he's walking towards me. I would swing out and free fire. It's called a wide angle because I'm obviously just swinging out into the open. So use tight if you want to still be behind cover, maybe switch your position after shooting a few bullets. But obviously you can see less. But wider, you have a better chance of catching him off guard, but it's higher risk. Now, when you're holding an angle, what's the difference between holding the right angle versus just camping? Let's say it's been about, you got the last 1 minute of the round, right? Now you're just kind of like, you don't know what to do, so you're just going to sit here and just kind of hold something that's nearby. You're just scared for your life in a corner. This is very unproductive because you're basically hoping for a gunfight that is very unrealistic. But using sounds, predicting where the enemy is coming from, and listening to your teammates will help you choose a more productive angle. So a productive angle, let's say I'm camping this reinforcement, but am I really camping? I'm just kind of holding an angle here, forcing them to plant the bomb. This angle is a lot lower risk because even though it might be kind of a common peak, I'm very hard to shoot and I can kind of change the angle whenever I want. But I'm still holding a very strong line of sight onto what the attackers are trying to get. So remember, if your angle has no objective, no utility coverage, or no rotation after, it's probably a bad angle and you want to mix it until you can find somewhere like this. But now let's say it's about minute 30 seconds of the round, nothing's really happening, and you're still switching between angles, but you're questioning yourself, am I holding the right angle? That is a good thing. You should always be questioning if you are holding the right angle, depending on your sound, the time of the round. This gets you out of the tunnel vision, and that way you stay alive longer. Some good questions to ask yourself are is there any utility nearby? Can I play off a Thorn Trap, a Rooney Gate, Malusi Banshee? Can I leave this angle? If I get droned out, am I able to run away in safety? Or even just think about, okay, what are the common entry points? People come 90, they come this way, they come on the door. So now you have 3 angles to pick from. So always evaluate what is the best angle in this current time of the round. Now, how do you hold angles on staircases? So if I'm at the top of a staircase, I'm just gonna want to look about like halfway up, because when someone's walking up, their head is going to come first, right? And it's going to be shown about just right here is when I can see the enemy, right? So if I stand right here, I would want to pre-aim not down here, because if I'm looking down here, they're just going to walk up and then I have to make an adjustment and I'll probably die first. So you want to kind of pre-place your crosshair where you think they're going to be like tracking their movement. Another angle is the same thing. If you were to stand in the middle of the platform, you are in a very unexpected spot. So this is a very good angle to hold. Again, pre-aim about head level. Don't do too far, not too close, but just right. Now, obviously, if I'm walking up, I'm going to want to check the platform angle and then immediately swap to the top angle. Okay, how about windows? How do I hold angles on windows? Obviously, I can't just stand in the middle of it, right? So how do I do it? From the enemy's perspective, if I'm repelling the window, the entire room is just in the open, right? This player can move around, so your cover might not be seen from your behind, or they can see the top of your head, right? So to minimize that, you would, again, maximize cover, but hold a tight angle, so that way when you see him, you can get the chance to shoot him in the head. This is more of an aggressive, but let's say you do need to get someone off the window. You could crouch on the window. I wouldn't recommend standing because sometimes they might be upside down rappel. But you always want to wide swing that window, because if you just kind of take it head on, you give them an opportunity to shoot you. Versus if I'm tucking on the window and then swinging, I give them less reaction time. But before all of this, you should not be peeking the window at all. If anything, you should put yourself behind cover and use sound cue. You can hear when the rope is moving, which means he's a moving target. You can hear him when he goes upside down rappel. So that way I know if I'm going to swing, I can combine it with the pre-fire and maybe choose a common, upside and rappel, corners of the window. But sound cue is very important here. Now, angles aren't only just for holding lines of sight and seeing if you can see who can shoot each other better. When you have multiple angles like this, left, right, bottom, and you combine this with a power position, you can really delay a lot of map control. And if they can't, shoot you, you just play a game of whack-a-mole and you can waste a lot of time doing this. This brings me to my next point. When you are holding key points of map control, like you're holding a very contested area, you want to have a very high versus low risk amount of peaks. A high risk would be wide swinging everything, right? Because you can obviously die. But if you learn to kind of how to dip your toe in the water a little bit, then you can really hold a piece of map control for a long time. Now, to touch up a little bit on the tight versus wide angles, how do you play aggressive with angles? Angles in Siege are not only just like stationary, lines of sight that don't move. This is where it gets a little complex, but as defense, you're obviously playing the map inside out, but on attack you're playing outside in. So the flow and kind of rotation of a defender, they're always going to be swinging this door to peek it, right? Which means they are taking a lot more of a riskier fight because they don't know exactly when you're walking in. Versus an attacker, I have all the time to hold the angle and choose when I want to walk in. The defense is so limited of where they can move, but as an attacker, I can open up around whenever I want. This is where you would play confident and wide swing, because when you wide swing, you give them less time to react back to you. Now, I want you to apply this principle of an inside out and an outside in angle for attack and defense. Think about it. Where an attacker usually would be, where would a defender normally be? And if you apply this to almost all like the highly contested parts of the map, then you will understand a lot more of when to swing versus when not to swing. And since our win condition here when playing angles very wide swing like this, you want to use utility, flashes, information to make sure that thread goes through the needle super good. So that way that needle goes through the thread a lot easier is what I meant to say. Now let's talk about how angles interact with the map more, like site setups. First, we have footholds. Now footholds are typically made for retakes. Let's say defenders lose a piece of map control, then they can reuse these footholds to look into a different room without having to exactly physically be in there, because this is too high risk to fight anyone in this room. But this is a lot lower risk when I can use a lot more natural cover and shoot anyone's feet coming in. Now, if we upgrade to head holes, this is a little bit more of a transactional angle between the attackers and defenders. And the right parts of the map, again, depending on the flow of the map, can attackers use this a lot better? Can defenders use this better? If I put head holes here, attackers have ACOGs that can see deep into sight. They're probably going to win the gunfight. But here, as you can see, when someone walks in, it's a lot more mid-range, so holographics can thrive in this more. And now sometimes you'll make very high-level holes. Why would you do this, though? Because you can't see through anything. Well, it's very dependent. But let's say I'm a defender defending up here, and I don't want anyone to hop through this window. It's a lot better of a sight for me. Now, kind of switching the topic, metas in Siege are powerful. Obviously, we all know common angles. Common angles are like, let's say if I'm an attacker here, right? I'm checking this corner, I'm checking this corner, the doorway, and then moving on to this doorway. But operators like Azami, where you can literally manipulate the map's angles and make angles out of thin air. A good Azami player, basically you're you're forcing people to take angles they are not familiar with. That is why Azami is so strong in Pro League, because she's just very hard to counter and deal with. Remember when I said there are some key points of map control that you want to, you know, take low risk fights like this? I'd say each map has about like 3 power points on each bomb site, but Azami can literally make that anywhere on the map. That's why she's S tier. This is the same as deployable shields. Deployable shields are obviously immovable bulletproof objects, right? So if I put that bulletproof shield anywhere in the room, then I just force the enemy to clear out like 3 new potential angles. Now, obviously the community has their favorites. They put it here on the piano, maybe on here, but that's why deployable shields and Azami are very good for disrupting common angles in Siege. And if you want to watch a good Azami player that takes very unfair angles, you're watching the right guy. Now, moving on to my next point of pushing rooms with line of sight, let's pretend I'm an attacker. We're going to do something called clearing angles. We've talked about wide swing, wide peaks, right? We don't want to take on the entire room at once. I want you to imagine about any possible angle in this room. Imagine about like 10 people in a room pointing a gun at this very doorway. I'm gonna clear every spot of those imaginary players until one person's actually there. I'll take very small, you know, peaks like this, like, okay, no one's on this door. I can clear that. Is anyone on master door? No, they're not there. I can clear that. Is anyone on bathroom? No, I can clear that. Someone on piano. Oh, someone's head glitching on piano. Boom. You're just dipping your toe in the water until eventually you find a reason to get in. And this is the same philosophy that applies for defense too. Unless you're snappy and you just freaking drop shot the entire room, then by all means do it. Moving on to my next point about angles is know how to hold angles in clutches. When you're in a 1v3 situation, or maybe you're just a roamer and you're getting cornered by like 3 different angles. Let's say I'm fighting a sledge who just hopped in this window, but then I got Thermite holding this and I got a Twitch holding this. Obviously, let's say they're about to kill me, but let's say if I'm getting pressured, I'm going to keep falling back and then taking on new angles. Because if they don't have information on me, I get a little bit more of an advantage. Let's say they keep droning me, I shoot a drone, and then boom, move back, completely new angle. But the thing is, these angles can be completely reused maybe later in the round, but obviously you would rather just swap to a fresher one. This forces the enemy to really push into your angle and gives you more of an advantage in the gunfight. Because the more you keep moving, the different angles you're going to be on, the harder target you are going to be to track down. And the last thing I do want to talk about is Peeker's advantage. All of these angles do not matter unless you use Peeker's advantage. What Peeker's advantage is when a player moves in the server, whatever I do, the server picks up a small latency delay to send out to the other screens and players. Now, depending on your internet, like if you see right here, if it's higher, then sometimes there might be a delay on seeing you and you're responding to your actions to the server. So typically players with high ping would be the first one to move, so that way they have the advantage of having the server respond back to them, or the server picking up your moves. Also, if you are on higher ping and internet, if you hold an angle, players that are peeking this door, like quick peeking you, you're not going to see them until like a second after they do it, and by the time they see you, they're already going to shoot you in the head. So if you do have higher internet, I do understand some people, you know, have awful McDonald's Wi-Fi. You're going to want to use sound cues a lot more, so that way you can be a little bit more unpredictable on your swings. So if most of the time it is the advantage to be swing or be swung, you do not want to be sitting in a corner allowing that to happen to you. And this applies on any map. If you ever find yourself being scared sitting in a corner, you can get swung on from a lot of different ways. Let's say it's the last 5 seconds, right? And I'm going to sit right here. Who's going to win in the battle? A person sitting right here or the attacker moving like this? About 89% of the time, it will be the attacker moving because they will see you first. Unless this player is, you know, about to pre-fire like this, he has no way of humanly like predicting and seeing where he's going to swing. The only thing he can use is either to pre-fire or he can wait for the server to like literally send their player, right? Moral of the story though, make sure you're always swinging. Even if you are stuck in these corners, if you feel like he's about to push or you hear the sound cue of him walking, you're better off just shooting and moving at the same time. Next I do want to talk about is crossfires. What is a crossfire? A crossfire is when 2 players are forcing one angle to look both ways. For example, if I am defender 1, I sit in this corner. If I am defender 2, I'm going to sit behind cover right before he's about to get to a gunfight. Let's say the attacker is walking through here, right? Again, he has 10 different imaginary dudes he has to fight or clear angles on. If he somehow finds my teammate and kills him, the second their bullets and guns go off, that gives me the exact cross replacement and time to react to shooting someone in the back of the head. This literally makes 2v1s unwinnable for the attacker. The only reason this fails is if the attacker or the defender doesn't swing and they don't work together. Now, it doesn't have to be the last 30 seconds of a round to use this tactic on. Let's say I got a teammate top of this door right here, right? And an attacker is walking through this door. I can wait here, wait for my teammate to make the first initiation, and I would swing out. This goes back to when we talked about wider angles and playing off sound cue. Wider angles are obviously more higher risk, but I'm using a high risk, high reward type of play style when there's literally zero risk because the attacker's head is turned to me. The attacker's head is turned to my teammate. Now, this is a very high level amount of teamwork, but if you get it done, it's amazing. All right, that is everything that you should know about playing angles in Siege from a low to high level. Let's actually put this into a game and see if it works. I'm gonna try to... I'll literally, like, if the moment comes up to pull something out of the fucking angle board that we were talking about earlier, I will explain it. But again, like Siege, angles, like lines of sight can be anything. It is just like atoms, mass. I don't know the explanation, but that's why it's so complicated. But that's what makes Siege so great, is because there are like unlimited possibilities to happen. And let's say if we left the map by itself, we left the map, no walls open, nothing open, right? It would still be very complicated. But the fact that we're mixing in holes, reinforcements, angles, right, and utility, this just multiplies the outcomes of the round by like a million. This shield's gonna go right here because, again, it doubles down on the footholes here. If it's not already hard enough to kill me in the footholes, then we have a shield. That rotation I'd be there, by the way. So this hatch has a one-way angle. I can always see their body, but they cannot see me. Wait. I swear to God. That is the only time that has... What? Bro, that works like 99% of the time. It just happened to be the one time I film a video, I get smoked off that angle. But you guys get the point. Editor cut that part. If I had to describe it, if I held it a little bit tighter, right? That angle is like a 70-30% chance. 70% in my favor, 30% on the others. Because, again, as you saw in that kill cam, he mostly sees my lower half of my body, but I can see like a little bit more of his body than he can. Oh yeah, chat. Wait, you saw him on the window. Echo on the window. You saw him on the window. Peek it. Oh, he's probably gone by now, bro.
Op 4, last operator standing.
Sydney Sweeney, bro.
Op 4
Wow.
eliminated.
Wait, why are we going CC, bro? All right, whatever, man. You know what? I do a lot of angle holding with a Rooney here. We can do this. I guess one kind of like small thing I would want to talk about is like off angles. Off angles are created with like good knowledge, right? But you basically play an angle that is unexpected, but in the right situation and timing of the round is very powerful. Because the time to kill in Siege is so short, like it takes like 3 bullets to kill someone, if you can just like catch their arm or their leg in the wrong spot, then you easily win that gunfight versus someone who has way better aim than you. Why are there footholds here, bro? We lost garage control already. Alright, we're losing a lot of players fast. So this angle forces them to walk. This is a bit of a wider... Okay, we just have no holes for anything here. Alright, 3v3. I'm going to play a little more passive on my angles. I'm going to force the enemy to peek into a lot more. 2v3 might have to get aggressive here. Can I force a gunfight on the breach? This is kind of a bad angle because I can get swung on. But like, the way this breach is built... There we go. All right, we're going to move back. I'm also holding kind of like the angle, the gunfight that might happen first. Like his teammate might try to cover. I'm going to use sound cue to give me a better angle to watch. The second fight is him walking in the breach.
Op 4, last operator standing. Friendly, last operator standing.
All right.
Victorious.
Nice. So again, like remember when I talked about sitting still? Like if I'm sitting still, he's going to get Peeker's advantage on me. That's why I didn't want to sit in that box, because he's just going to swing red and he's going to get the jump on me. But versus if I were, you see how I kept moving, and where I think he is, I'm going to like keep using the bomb as a cover. So that way, if we're both behind cover, I get to use the peeker's advantage. I get to make the first move, basically. Making the first move in a gunfight is probably one of the most important things you can probably do. Also, I guess I will teach you guys how to quick peek, since some people have been asking about it. Without making it too complicated, you move in, you lean out, but as you're moving back into cover, you lean back in. So instead of doing an AD strafe, it does include an AD strafe, but the speed comes from your character leaning. You see how I lean left, but I cancel that right?
10 seconds.
Like this. You see how it makes the animation weird? And if I spam that little jiggle, then it's a lot. It's good, but you should look at my video on how to explain it. But this angle is not about that, it's about angles. So let's roam and let's take on a lot more angles. That was a little long by me, I'm not gonna lie. Peeking my head into a window immediately alerts them to like that I'm there. I was just kind of doing that to see because I'd heard the breach go off. But yeah, typically I would never hold angles that long again.
Dirt.
I'm not gonna shoot that drone yet. So that door's closed. You might be watching his flank. If he shoots his gun on the hatch, then I'm gonna peek. I think he's watching me right now. There we go. I'm just gonna stay here.
1 Op 4 remaining. Op 4 eliminated.
So that angle I did on kitchen was a mix of a close angle. Again, closer angles, if you walked in the hall, it would be a faster reaction time, but it's also like you have less time to react. So it's kind of like you're kind of forcing yourself to hit that nice shot. But the second I got to that door, then I did a wide swing. Because again, high risk, high reward. I almost died, but I got the high risk of catching them off guard. Because I used sound cue to tell me when to swing. The sound cue I'm looking for is anything that tells me that they're not focused on my door. And if I can kind of listen to my gut, then, or, you know, use the calculation correct, then it's a successful swing. How do you beat pixel corners like you are now? Or am I better of not contesting? Pixels, you wanna kind of like check them a little bit. Like, you know, you kind of know how in like boxing or like any kind of like combat sport, you kind of check them, right? You kind of like, what is it, when someone kind of throws like a punch at you or like a kick, you kind of just like tap it, right? You kind of just like do that. It's kind of like that kind of theory. If someone's holding an angle, I would just like, let's say someone's holding an angle in this window right here, right? And I would kind of just kind of like tap at it, like shoot at it a little bit, anything to get him off that angle. A smart player would know to not re-hold that angle. And if he does, then you just free fire his head. Oh, wait, I'm so stupid. I haven't even talked about vertical play. I didn't talk about vertical play a single time. Go watch my vertical video if you haven't already. But a quick tip for vertical is know the metal bars. So you see how they are like facing one way? I kind of want to always take a gunfight on the side of them, not directly in the middle, because then you see how more exposed I am to like all those other bars. Bro, what? What? No. They actually made the Great Wall of China. Bro, this was in my Legion. What? Bro, this was in my worm strat. And someone... Bro, you think I'm joking about the worm videos, guys? You think I joke about that shit? Oh, hell no. Wait, it's just Aruni and Clash, right? Oh, yeah. He's in blue. So, I'm going to create my own angle. Because they just didn't do anything. Where's Aruni?
1 Op 4 remaining.
This one's a Clash. So again, you see, look right here. The Clash is standing still. She has no time to react to me because I'm a 3-speed moving hella fast. Peeker's advantage at level. But yeah, that breaks it down for this video of angles. So if you guys found this video helpful on how to play angles, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next video.